All right. Shalom, Yasharel. Shalom. I know this is kind of like impromptu, a little late with the lesson, but hey, we're going to get it started. We're going to get going. I'm going to wait for a few more to come on here. So I want to give all praises and glory to the Almighty. I want to give a shout out to the bruised, scattered to the four corners. Pray that you all are blessed. Pray that you're all in good spirit, especially in these times that we're living in. It's getting crazy out here. Everything is going haywire. But this is all in the plan of the Almighty. And this is why I'm calling this discussion the kill chain. And for good reasons. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So let me go ahead and pull some up for you all. I call this title this for a reason. I want to read something to you. If you've never ever heard the term the kill chain, it's a military reference, and I'll read to you what it's used for. It says a kill chain is a model detailing the stages of an attack, from initial planning to target destruction. Originally derived from military doctrine to identify and neutralize threat. Now, why am I showing you this? Why am I telling you about this? Well, for several reasons. You have to understand how the enemy works, right? And the way that our enemies have always worked is that they studied us. They studied our ways. They study what we eat, what we like, what music we like to listen to. And so all that's taken in account because as a people of the Almighty, the ones who control everything, they know who we are as a people. And many others are starting to realize that too, especially with the revealing that's going on with Israel and Iran. Right? The United States are the only people who are confused as far as who those people are, because they believe that those people over there in Israel are the chosen people. Now, the rest of the world don't believe that. The rest of the world have a different perspective because they've seen what they've done. So the Most High is allowing these things to happen and to come into fruition because it's all part of prophecy. These things must happen. I know it seems like sometimes for many of our people, like there's no end in sight. When are we going to get delivered? When are things are going to really get popping? You don't know what's fake or real on the social media anymore. Everything is just so saturated with AI. You just don't know what is going on. And so, but I will tell you this, always follow what the scripture says. Always pay attention to the signs because the scriptures never lie. The Most High says he's going to do what he says. And no one can stop that. Micah 5:15 says it all. It says, and I will execute vengeance in anger and fury upon the heathen, such as they have not heard. Now, if you think that we're starting to see judgment now, this is nothing. I mean, this is just a small case of the beginning of what's to come. Because we're getting ready to see a whole slew of things that are beginning to take place. And as the Most High is putting all these pieces together, it may seem like he's the land, but he's not. We got to understand that the Most High's time frame is nothing like ours. We think in terms of time, because we've built this time frame around us on a 24-hour time clock where we go to sleep at certain times, we wake up, go to work, come back home, do the same routines over and over and over. See, the Most High don't operate like that. You got to understand we're dealing with a powerful being that never sleeps, who has no beginning or end, whose time to him is nothing to him, whereas a day to the Most High is like 1,000 years to us. So don't get weary. Don't get weary just because you feel like, or you don't, in your own wisdom, don't see things happening quick enough. That is not ours to worry about. What we need to focus on is obeying the commandments of the Almighty and making sure that we are straight, that making sure that we are working out our salvation with fear and trembling. Because at the end of the day, guess what? Your life is not promised. Any one of us can be here today and then be gone tomorrow. Then what? That's your judgment. That's it. That's the only time you get. And no one knows when their time clock is going to end. This is why we got to make the best of what we got now. Now, I pray that if it's the Most High's will that we can see these things and see the destruction of our enemies in our lifetime. But again, you know, you don't know what time frame the Most High is going to really speed things up. No matter what weapons our enemies have, it doesn't matter how long it takes them to develop. The Most High can wait and wait on years, and man will still never be able to create advanced weapons, because the one thing that you'll never ever be able to defeat is the natural destruction of the elements. What do I mean by the natural destructions of the elements? I'm talking about tornadoes. I'm talking about floods. I'm talking about hurricanes. I'm talking about fires, earthquakes. Even with all the technology that man has today, none of them can come close to just the pure, full blunt destruction of the nature of the Almighty. The Most High can let us go another 1,000 years and let man advance to whatever, and they still won't come close to being able to match the Most High's power. It's almost like a trick game. It's almost like the Most High is saying, you know what? I'm gonna let you advance your weapons. Get everything that you can get, advance your weapons, and let's see if you can match my power. I mean, that's something. The kill chain. The Most High is going to be the ultimate kill chain. And the Most High is the ultimate puppet master because he is the one that's controlling everything. It may seem like that these heathens are winning. It may seem like they have us at the barrel of the gun. You see, that's the irony of what's happening, because it only seems that way. But when you see things through the truth, through the scriptures, you see a different outlook. And if you're in this truth and you're keeping the commandments with all your might, strength, and heart, you're going to see things differently. You're not going to see them as someone looking from the outside. And the things that are going on with Israel right now in Iran, they were not expecting this. They didn't see this coming. But this was prophesied in Isaiah 13. Everything that is happening is not happening just by coincidence. All this is happening because the Most High has designed it so. I'm going to show you a clip. This was a clip of a man being challenged to do a DNA test in Israel. Now, this is an old clip. I've seen the full interview, but I'm just going to show you a snapshot of it. And I want y'all to pay attention to what's going on here, because there's a reason why that those Ish people don't want you to know, or they don't want you to know who you are as a people. They have banned for the last 2 years that I can recall, they don't allow DNA testing in Israel. Did y'all know that? That's been banned for 2 years. So let's check this out right quick.
Abram's descendants are the ones who have the...
All right, I'll give it a second here because I know there's a video delay. All right.
right to have this land, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't we do genetic testing on everybody in the land and find out who Abram's descendants are? It's really simple. We've cracked the human genome. We can do that. Why don't we do that? Would you be against doing that?
I have no idea what that would prove. I mean,
Really?
maybe it would be.
What do you mean? It would prove who Abram's descendants are and who has a right to live here and who doesn't, according to the theology that you yourself just explained. And so I'm very confused as to why we don't do that. If you believe the theology that you've just explained to me.
Would we do that all over the world?
Well,
and everybody
this is the only country in the world that you've said has this covenant with God, that this people have a moral and legal right to the land.
But there are people who may not have bloodlines, but who have converted to Judaism. Are they going to be able to live here? Are you going to kick them out?
By your standards, they can't live here.
No,
because
no,
you
I've
just
never
told
said-
me
no,
that they have a right to live here because God gave them the land because they're the descendants of Abram.
The descendants of Abraham. But if they're the spiritual descendants of Abraham and they've now decided that they're...
So I'm going to stop right there for a minute. Notice he said the spiritual descendants. Now, the scriptures, you will find nowhere in the scriptures where it talks about a spiritual Israel. There's no such thing as a spiritual Israel. See, this is what these Christian churches love to teach. They love to teach that, oh, well, you can convert in their spiritual Israel. I know the scriptures don't teach that. I'm going to prove it to you here after this clip. Let's continue.
converting to Judaism, then do they have a right to live in Israel?
Since you began this conversation by asking me, did I think they had a right to come here?
Yeah, that's
and
what
my
Zionism
question
is.
was, on what basis do they have the right?
Yeah.
And
I've
you
tried
said
to-
because God granted it to them.
And I also said because that there should be a land where Jews can live in peace and safety.
And I asked you what a Jew was, and you couldn't answer it. You
No, I
said
didn't
it partly is religious, but doesn't have to be. It's partly genetic, but it doesn't have to be. And so that you can see why I'm confused.
I think I was very clear.
Bibi's family, we know they lived in Eastern Europe. There's no evidence they ever lived here. He's not religious.
But
in what sense
ancestrally- but
how do we know
ancestrally-
that? Do you have his family tree? No, we don't.
Do you?
He doesn't. No one does. That's the point.
But
So
if
how do
there
we
is-
know that he
but
has any
if they
connection
are
to this land at
Jewish,
all?
And if there has been a practice of Judaism and a connection to the language,
But
the
he
Bible,
doesn't-
the land,
His ancestors didn't. He doesn't practice Judaism in any rigorous way. His ancestors didn't live here. They didn't speak the language, and there's no evidence they ever lived here. So in the territory that Israel controls today, particularly in the West Bank, who, through genetic testing, we can know their families have been here for thousands of years. We don't know whether they practiced Judaism, whether they were Samaritans, pre-Islam. We don't know that. A lot of them we know have been Christians for 2,000 years. They have less of a right to the land than someone whose ancestors, the only thing we know about them is they lived in Latvia or Poland. They're Eastern European. How does that work?
Have you seen?
So, that was, again, you can go back and you can pull that up of Carson Tucker debating with those guys. It's crazy because they're being revealed. They are being revealed. The Most High is just snatching the jaws off of them. They're being exposed. There's only so much lies that you can cover up and try to hide from. Even with this dude, Bibi, this Benjamin Netanyahu, I believe the Iran's got him because they're trying to cover it up. But the guys are missing in action. But their pride, they will refuse to even admit that that dude is dead because their pride is so great. But you know what? The Most High is bringing down all that. So let me show you in the scriptures and prove to you that there is no such thing as a spiritual Israel. Only the bloodline descendants. Let's go to Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 8. And I'm with verse 8. It says, for finding fault with them, he says, behold, the day comes, says Yahweh, when I will cut a renewed covenant. It didn't say a covenant with the heathens. It says a renewed covenant with the house of Yasharel and with the house of Yehuda. It's talking about it's talking about the southern and northern tribes that were split up. That is the renewed covenant he is making with. Now, I want you to pay attention because he's talking about a different generation. He says, not according to the covenant that I cut with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Mizraim. Now, it's obvious that it's not talking about us because our forefathers were led out of Egypt. So it's making a comparison. So continue to listen. It says, because they continue not in my covenant. So I took them 40 years to go into the promised land because they didn't, coming out of Egypt, they were caught up in all kind of adultery and wickedness. So all of that had to be weaving out of them. I regarded them not, says Yahweh. For this is the covenant that I will cut with the house of Yasharel after those days. What did it say? After those days. When the Most High talks in days, it's talking about in years. But who is it talking about? It's talking about us, the current day Israelites that are scattered to the four corners, who don't know who they are. So says Yahweh, I will put my Torah into their mind and write it in their hearts. And I will be their Elohim, and they shall be to me a people. This is what's coming. This is what we're seeing right now. And it's only the Spirit that is working through his people. See, one thing you got to understand, it was the Almighty who brought us into captivity. And it's going to be the Almighty who is going to take us out of captivity. And that is the one thing that no one can stop. I mean, it's going to be an amazing sight. And this is why we have to really be on guard and keep these commandments. It is the Spirit that is working through his people, but so many times our people are rejecting the Spirit and you don't hear it. And that's a terrible thing, because I guarantee you, all his people have been awarded the same truth. It's just many choose not to answer the call. Many choose not to hear the voice. And that's what's going to separate the wheat from the tares. And Most High has given us the greatest sign, because we're seeing all these things that are happening. We're seeing the wars and rumors of wars. We're seeing prophecy being fulfilled right before our very eyes. We're seeing Isaiah 13 come to fruition. These Iranians are nothing like Iraq. People are tired. People are sick and tired of being bullied, especially over there in what is called the Middle East. They've already learned that lesson during the Iraq War, during what they call Operation Iraqi Freedom. It wasn't about no Iraqi freedom. It was always about stealing natural resources, and they thought they can do the same thing with Iran. This is why they always say that Iran is a threat. No, Iran has never been a threat. It's that you use that analogy in order to make an excuse to go over there and steal their resources. Just like they say Burkina Faso is a threat. They say Ibrahim Traore is a threat. Because why? Because he has kicked the French out and he possesses a lot of gold. So why not come up with a scenario and say that they're a threat in order to make an excuse to steal their resources? See, this is what these people do. They lie. They lie from the womb. Never stop. They are professional liars. I will prove it to you. He says the wicked, this is Psalms 58:3. It says the wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. That's our enemies. So don't be fooled. You can't believe everything that the news media is putting out, because who owns the news media? Who owns all the news outlets? Of course you know who it is. So don't you think that they would control what's being put out? Who owns YouTube? The same medium that I'm putting this podcast out to. They own all that stuff. We don't own it. They can go in and alter, and they can block videos. They can shadow block all kinds of stuff. It's their stuff. The one thing you cannot stop is the prophecies of the Almighty. And that will be fulfilled. You just have to go through the process. And it's not going to be pretty. But put on your seatbelts and buckle up, because it's getting ready to be a roller coaster ride. And let's pray for one another. Pray for our people, that they will listen and hear the voice and stop shucking and jiving. Because the longer our people keep shucking and jiving, the more lost our people are going to be. So I really pray that this message is really taken seriously, and that our people will really wake up out of the matrix. And with that being said, be blessed, Yasharel. I say shalom, shalom, and stay strong.